Hi, everyone. My name is Philippa Hughes, and I'm the director of Looking for America. Normally, Looking for America organizes bipartisan conversations all over the country, bringing people together to break bread and have conversations about the issues of the day and what does it mean to be American. We thought we'd try something different this time. We partnered up with the Friedrich Ebert Foundation, and they are a social democratic organization in Germany. And they wanted to hear from real Americans. What are real Americans saying about our current politics and discourse leading up to the election? And we are focusing a little bit more on people who lean on the left this time. And we're going to be talking to two amazing people from Texas. And we chose, we've been going around to several states around the country that we believe are battleground states, or states that are kind of starting to lean more, or either swing places, or they're starting to trend more to the left, and wondering what people in those states are thinking about. So today we've got two awesome two friends of mine, Angel Cabrales, who's from El Paso, Texas, and Stephen Sweeney, who lives outside of Houston, who is a longtime dear friend. So thank you both for being here and having a conversation with us. And you know, we'd like to get to know you a little bit better. Would you introduce yourselves? Angel, would you mind starting?
Sure. I am a multimedia sculptor and sculpture professor at UT El Paso. I'm actually talking to you from the inside of a truck because I had to travel to Odessa, Texas for an exhibition out here. So I'm using actually the Wi-Fi from this truck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I grew up in El Paso, and I like making work that creates conversations about current issues in the U.S.
For our German audience who might not understand the geography of Texas, would you explain sort of where El Paso is in relation to the rest of Texas? Because it is kind of interesting.
Texas is huge, and El Paso is the very most western part, that little itty bitty corner of Texas that's the furthest west. We are so far west that we are not in the same time zone as the rest of the state. We're actually in mountain time, whereas the rest of the state is in central, and it would take me 12 hours to travel from El Paso to the other side of Texas to Houston.
It's a big state.
It's a big state.
We're going to come back to this, but I also want to mention that El Paso is literally on the border and has a sort of sister city, across the river. And so I think that's going to be important for our conversation for people to know.
Okay.
Stephen, will you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Stephen Sweeney. I live in southeast Houston, which is actually on I-10, about 850 miles from we know that's what it says on the signs. I grew up here in Houston, in an area southeast near NASA. So if people know that the Johnson Space Center is in southeast Houston, and that's mission control for the manned space flights since the 60s. And so I grew up in a community with a lot of people who are not from Houston, right? A lot of engineers and contractors and astronauts' families who lived in that area of town and were associated with the space program. And I did move away for a long time, and that's where Philip and I met each other 30 years ago or so, but did find my way back, right? Not by choice, but by opportunity. And I don't live very far from where I actually grew up in southeast Houston. And
Wow.
And I'm a small business owner, I guess, in the information technology space. So I'm here at my office. We run a skeleton crew here since the COVID. Most people are working from home, but I've been coming in and for pretty much since the very beginning. Other than the 2 weeks when one of our sons had COVID, and we were all kind of quarantining for a couple of weeks. So, but other than that, I've been coming in, and I live in a very, very conservative area of town. So Houston is like like a lot of large cities, it is more blue, and in the central part of town, and more red in the outskirts. But I happen to live in a district that actually was Ron Paul's old congressional district. So it kind of covers Galveston and Lake Jackson, and in some ways it's more libertarian, than necessarily Republican. But in terms of looking around, I mean, you don't see many Biden anythings in the area that I live in. It's very, very, very red. Yeah. Which makes it a challenge, right? To be maybe more progressive or left leaning, and be in business, and with not a lot of neighbors that would necessarily align with my thinking. So.
Oh, interesting. Well, you brought up something that I kind of want to chat about. You said that one of your sons had COVID. I'm glad he recovered. I actually had COVID too back in March, and it was not a pleasant experience at all. And one of the things I kind of worried about that, even though well over 200,000 people have died, until President Trump got COVID, I felt like people started to kind of forget about it, and we're kind of putting it out of their brains. And then at town hall, they, Savannah Guthrie really hammered him, asking him, like, when did you know, when did you know you had COVID? How, when were you tested? Of course, he wouldn't answer. Do you think that people in Texas are, what are people thinking about COVID in Texas and the president's handling of it? At least in your communities.
In our communities. Well, I think generally people have gone along with the mask order. I don't see many people who are rejecting that. But I think that people are generally at this point, I don't know, ignoring is not the right term. I mean, I think that they're trying to accommodate the situation, and they want to resume some normalcy, eating out and things like that. And they're willing to take some inconveniences and do some things a little bit differently. But it is not at all, maybe what we saw or heard in some like in the Northeast or in California or in New York and some European countries where things were really like locked down. Right? I mean, Houston really only locked down for maybe a month or so, and then gradually started, relaxing restrictions. So, I'm not sure if that quite answers your question, but I mean, I think people are again, they're cognizant of it, and they're being careful, but there's not a willingness to just sit at home. Not that's not a popular view here.
Yeah. Angel?
That's El Paso's actually having problems right now, where we just had 1,900 infections in 8 days.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, and it's a little shocking, because we were doing so well, and then suddenly it just burst, just this past week, and the city's trying to figure out how to get it back under control. And then coming out here to Odessa, I've actually been a little freaked out because so many people are not wearing masks out here. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's damaging their ego, their manliness. I had to go to Home Depot and just watched people walking in where it said mandatory mask, walk by the lady who was checking, and then taking it right off as they walked past her.
Wow.
And I was just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna go get the bolts that I need right away, and I'm out. And I bought a spray sanitizer while I was there, and I was just walking around spraying as I walked through. Yeah, no, El Paso was doing really well, and now I feel like we're spiking again.
I mean, I think there are a lot of spikes happening all over the country right now. So I think our second wave appears to be on its way. Yeah. I guess what I was really, the one thing I was trying to get at is like, do people even care about what President Trump has done or hasn't done with regard to COVID? Is anybody even talking about that? Like, I feel like here in DC, we talk about it a lot. Like, I cannot believe what a terrible job he's done and he should be voted out. But I wonder if people in the rest of the country are even thinking about his specific handling of the pandemic.
I hear a lot of misinformation, from, not people who I would consider left leaning, right? I mean, the people who are on the other side of things, trying to justify, not wearing masks, right? That whether it's mental health related or it doesn't work. I mean, definitely buying into the, the misinformation, or what I consider to be misinformation, buying it wholesale. And then others like us and some of our other neighbors were like, really, like, you really, that's what you think is the right approach? But, to the extent that, some of these folks, are very, 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 Republican, and they're very, very behind Trump. It would seem to me that it really doesn't matter what he says. They're gonna, how outrageous it is, or how much it doesn't make sense. I mean, they're right in line with it. So,
I've had conversations with people here in Odessa, and they are very much Trump supporters. But and I was talking to them about, well, what's the harm in wearing that mask, in possibly protecting somebody you love? And funny enough, sorry, my brother keeps texting me and I keep telling him I'm busy. Okay. Funny enough, I had a friend that I hadn't spoken to since high school graduation, called me out of the blue from a burner phone that he had, and which was weird. It was a really weird conversation because he was worried about, COVID, but at the same time, not sure about masks and if he should be taking these things seriously. And it was weird to talk to somebody that, we went to school almost 25 years ago, and talk to him for 2 hours about why it's important to wear a mask, and convince him to stop going on Reddit and reading what other people are posting. It's like, you can actually find real information and not go through chat rooms and get your information from a chat room.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we talked a lot about when I came to El Paso for the bipartisan dinner was immigration. Could we talk about that a little bit? I mean, is anybody, again, I feel like nobody's really talking about the really important issues anymore, because all we care about is whether President Trump had COVID or not, or whatever. I mean, is that still seems like a very salient issue in Texas, and particularly.
Oh, yeah.
So, what's the conversation like?
Well, in El Paso, it's always been an issue, even before Trump, even while Obama was president, when Bush was there. It's always been an issue with us. The show I actually have here in Odessa is about immigration, and I was really nervous about talking about that here in Odessa because, like I said, Odessa is very much Trump country. There's very few cars here and many, many big trucks everywhere, and MAGA hats, and yet I showed these pieces here, and I had a talk about the artwork yesterday, and it was actually really well received, which I was a little scared about. But a big issue that I was talking about was that, look, you can have your views on immigration and everything, but the biggest thing for me is not to hit you over the head and tell you how you should think, but put an issue in front of you so that we can discuss it. And maybe we can find a middle ground so that we can move forward. And so the issue I was putting in front of them in regards to immigration was the dehumanization of people. And that actually got people talking at the talk yesterday. When I asked questions, I think I answered more questions than I spent talking about the work, which I felt was a really, really good thing and something that really needs to be done. But I'm very sad because, like you said, people were, let's talk about Trump and COVID, and we have such a sensationalist, tendency within our media and things like that. It's like, this is the next big thing that we should talk about. And the real issues are sidelined because this is the wow factor right now. But I think it's important to never lose sight of those actual issues and continue to bring them back up, even if it has to be in a manner that, you know, kind of sneaks it back in a way. So.
Yeah. So you know, we have three kids, right? The youngest is senior in high school. The oldest is 21, one in between, and two are left leaning, and one is right leaning. And
Wow.
one of the things that I've found, you know, maybe it's just like a microcosm, but like the right doesn't want to talk about ideas. Like, they don't want to win arguments on ideas. And you know, and I don't think that was always the case, and I know it wasn't always the case in my lifetime. And you know, right now, it's really hard to have a discussion on any issues because there's no ideas coming from the other side. I mean, there really isn't. And you know, it feels like talking to a wall. You know, there's nothing. You can put an idea out there or ask a provocative question, you know, like, you know, something to make someone think, and you don't get back, you know, a plan, you know, a pros and cons. You know, you don't really get much of anything. It just feels very emotional and defensive, and you know, kind of screw you, right? I mean, that it's hard. It's like, and you could pick immigration as a topic. You could pick others as well. It seems like it's almost like the same story, different verse. You know, that you try to have a discussion about ideas, and you want to, you know, win, right? You want your idea to win or find a winning idea, and like there's no ideas coming back. So, you know, whoa, I just went dark. Got to move around in here. In a nutshell, you know, I think, you know, it is on the right. It's an issue that is really turned emotional, right? It's a we need to take care of ourselves first, right? You know, we don't need to be spending money on you know, providing XYZ service to people who aren't legal residents, and you know, there is a law that needs to be followed. Which there's just not a lot of creativity into how to make anything better, right? You know, it's more about breaking things down, right? You know, breaking down institutions that, you know, might be useful or helpful in handling things better, and you know, not a lot of progression in any positive direction.
What do you want people in Germany to know about Texas?
Texans?
Well, I mean, especially in El Paso, we're super friendly. You know, you come to El Paso, we meet you, and we'll introduce you to our parents. We'll take you home. We'll feed you. You know, we'll send you home with tamales. You know, you're going home with stuff. I mean, you become family. You know, and that's why I love El Paso so much. You know, I've lived all over Texas, and I was so happy to get a position at UTEP and move back home. You know, I love Texas, but I think El Paso is, to me, is my favorite city in Texas. Sorry, Steve.
I've actually never been there. I've never been there. I've heard really nice things about it. Yeah, I mean, they've all learned that it's very big, and I would concur that it is a very friendly state, and you have a lot of people from a lot of different places. That, you know, it's not entirely homogeneously, you know, Texans, right? People, you know, a lot of imports. You know, I've spent time in Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and Austin, and you meet a lot of people from a lot of different places, and you know, I think, you know, people are very genuinely you know, happy, good people to know. And I don't know, I would like to think that that's everywhere in the U.S., but I guess I can't say because I don't really know.
I do love when I'm walking anywhere in Texas and I see someone walking toward me. Person will look and they'll nod and they'll smile as we walk by. We won't even know who we are, but we'll just be like, and just say hi. You know, and I think that's very distinctly Texan.
I think, you know, and this may not be only Texan thing, but I think there's a high degree of self-reliance in Texas.
Yes.
I think that people, and it's probably one of the reasons why, you know, you can have a libertarian, you know, right-leaning attitudes, that the people take care of themselves, they take care of their business, you know. I mean, I'm not going to say like say law and order necessarily, but you know, they feel like they can do things on their own, that they don't need a lot from their government, right? And it's something I see in other southern states as well. Most of my family is actually from Louisiana, and South Louisiana, and I see that a lot there too. Is that, you know, they just don't expect a lot, and that's part of the problem, is that they need to expect more. And there's like in a lot of ways they vote against their self-interest, because there's more that could be done, you know, that would help, you know, these communities. And you know, they're not participating in the stock market, so you know, there are things that need to be available, social programs, but they don't tend to vote for their self-interest as much as you think. I think because they feel like they can get it on their own, right? And they don't like the idea of other people just getting, right, just receiving without having earned. And it's an interesting. I mean, it's great. It's great, you know, that Texas has this sort of, you know, independent spirit, right? But it does have, you know, some undesirable consequences.
Yeah. Well, I love Texas. I enjoyed my visit to El Paso so much. I was totally taken into people's homes, so I can attest to that. And I've been taken into Stephen's home, so I appreciate that. So thank you so much both for being here. I think that it's really important for people to hear our voices, because, you know, our voices are often filtered through media and politicians, and they're not saying the things that we're saying. So really appreciate you sharing your real world views with the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So before we go off, I want to take a quick picture. I've had a cat sitting here on my lap. So I feel like it's like my little guest. Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, great to see you both. I hope to see you in real life someday, one of these days soon.
Hope so.
No.
I'm sad I missed when you came.
I know, but I'll come back and we'll eat tamales. So
definitely.
Okay.
Well, are you thinking about a trip down Houston? Did you mention maybe that you might be heading this way at some point?
Well, yeah, I have a lot of family in Houston, you know, Vietnamese family. So my mom is actually thinking about moving closer to my uncle who lives there. So for sure. But I do, you know, what we're trying to do with the Looking for America is go back to all the communities that we had gone to. So, I mean, when we can travel again and when we get the funding, I will definitely be back to El Paso for sure, because we want to keep those conversations going. And I want to talk to you more, Angel, about how we're going to use art to do that. I really love work.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
and you get down here and I will take you to my parents' restaurant.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll definitely be going to be seeing both of you next year.
And I'll go, if you're ever in Houston, please look me up. We'll get together. And Philippa, I know that if you're in Houston and had time, I mean, Natalie would love to organize a dinner, and we could get some pretty diverse views in the room.
I know.
From our neighborhood.
Let's do it. All right, thanks y'all. Thanks for being in your car and calling him home there.
Good for you.
It was important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye y'all.
Bye.